The stars were quiet that night. Not a single warship moved through the empty space near the frontier system. The Galactic Council had sent observers to watch humanity, and Karel, a small blue-scaled alien with eyes like polished stones, had been assigned to this mission. Karel had traveled thousands of light years to witness what all the galaxy whispered about: humans. Supposedly, they were nothing special, weak, and unremarkable compared to the fleets and empires that spanned the stars. But Karel's instructions were clear: observe, report, and do not interfere. At first, humanity seemed ordinary. Their planets were messy, crowded, and loud. Cities glowed with lights that burned too brightly at night, and their atmosphere was always full of movement, almost chaotic. Karel had expected to find a timid, scattered species, easy to dismiss. Instead, he saw something strange: humans working together quietly and calmly, even under pressure. A border system was under threat. Reports came in that a coalition of alien powers had begun raids near human space. The aliens believed humans would panic, that they would flee or surrender quickly. Karel waited with the human fleet, hidden in orbit around a medium-sized planet called Tareth. He had a perfect view of the humans assembling their ships. The fleet was small compared to the enemy. Rust-colored freighters, civilian transports, and older warships were lined up like children waiting for their first day at school. Karel expected chaos, but none came. Humans moved with purpose. Some worked in silence, repairing engines or refueling ships. Others carried crates of supplies or helped wounded workers. There was no shouting, no panic, only careful efficiency. Karel's claws itched with curiosity. He had never seen a species like this. Even when alarms blared across the human control stations, no one screamed or froze. They acknowledged the danger and then they acted. Ships that had been inactive for decades were awakened, and their crews, some very young, some very old, stood at their posts with calm determination. It was a slow, deliberate preparation, and yet every movement had a quiet rhythm, as if the humans knew exactly what they were doing. The alien coalition expected a fast victory. Their warships had advanced weapons and shields far beyond what human technology could match. Karel knew their leaders had been arrogant. They assumed that humans, weak and divided, would not withstand a single attack. But Karel began to sense something else, a pattern humans did not even notice themselves. They were learning from each other. Every ship had a purpose, every crew member a role. Humans adapted quickly, improvising when something broke, covering for those who could not continue. A young human, barely 19, walked along a docking platform carrying a heavy crate of supplies. Sweat ran down his face, but he did not stop. He nodded at a soldier repairing a damaged engine, and the soldier nodded back. There was no pride, no show, only understanding. Humans did what needed to be done, even when it was difficult or dangerous. Karel felt a chill in his chest. He had observed countless species over his lifetime, but none had this quiet resolve. The enemy struck first. Sensors detected a small fleet of alien ships moving in fast, confident that the humans would scatter. Karel's eyes widened. Instead of panic, the humans began moving their fleet into formation. Civilian ships were placed in the center, protected by warships in a precise defensive pattern. Humans were not rushing, they were organizing. The alien fleet fired, expecting resistance, but the humans dodged in perfect synchronization. Karel realized that humans did not need overwhelming force to be dangerous. They relied on coordination, intelligence, and a willingness to endure. Every evasive maneuver, every defensive positioning showed that humans had studied not just strategy, but survival. They expected to be hit, and they planned accordingly. Every loss was anticipated, every possible failure accounted for. It was not reckless courage. It was something deeper, something that the galaxy had misunderstood entirely. He watched a human captain issue orders calmly over the comms. The words were simple, direct, and full of authority. Karel tried to process how a species that seemed so fragile could handle so much pressure without crumbling. The humans had no advanced shields, no overwhelming weapons. They had only their minds, their will, and each other. And it was terrifying in a way Karel could not describe. Hours passed. The enemy expected to overwhelm the humans in minutes, but the humans held their positions, adapted to attacks, and even began counter-maneuvers. Karel's antennas twitched nervously. He had expected to see chaos, but instead, he witnessed humans quietly changing the rules of battle. When a supply ship was damaged, humans repaired it while under fire. When a small warship lost its engines, humans coordinated a towing operation that kept it safe. One of the alien commanders had sent a message directly to the human fleet, mocking their perceived weakness. Karel heard the human response. It was calm, factual, and terrifyingly precise. The humans did not threaten. They did not beg. They only explained what they would do next, and then they did it. It was as if they had rehearsed everything, and yet nothing felt staged. It was instinct. By the end of the first day, Karel began to understand why the galaxy feared humans. It was not because they sought war. It was not because they wanted glory. It was because humans refused to break. No matter the pressure, no matter the odds, they continued moving forward, solving every problem as it came. Every failure became a lesson, every loss a calculation. Humans could survive almost anything, and the galaxy had never faced a species like this before. Night fell on Tarath, but humans did not rest completely. Some repaired damaged equipment. Some analyzed enemy movements. Some simply sat quietly watching the stars, preparing for what might come next. Karel observed silently, taking notes for the council. He had never seen such focus, such determination, and such calm under threat. The humans were more terrifying than any weapon the galaxy could build. Karel wondered if the humans themselves knew how dangerous they were. Most of them seemed unaware of the fear they inspired in others. They did not fight for conquest or revenge. They fought because they could, because they had no choice but to protect their own. And in that, Karel realized, lay the core of their power. Humans would endure, and nothing, not even the most powerful alien fleets, could stop them if they refused. As the first waves of the enemy fleet retreated for the night, Karel's mind raced. The council would never understand until they saw humans fight themselves. And perhaps he thought quietly that would be too late. The galaxy's mistake had been simple. They had underestimated humanity. They had assumed humans were weak, messy, emotional, and divided. They were wrong. Humans were much more than that. Karel knew that the coming days would reveal even more. Humans were preparing for a war that the galaxy thought they could not survive. And yet they would survive. Not because they were stronger, not because they were faster, but because they had learned to endure, to adapt, and to persist against all odds. Karel felt a shiver run through him. The humans' calm, quiet determination was a storm in itself. And as he watched the stars, waiting for the next attack, Karel realized that the galaxy's fear of humanity was well-deserved. The humans were marching toward war, and they were not afraid. The human fleet moved with calm purpose the next morning. The enemy had expected chaos, confusion, and fear, but they found something far more dangerous: organization and determination. Ships that had been idle for decades now moved as if they were parts of a single living organism. Karel watched from orbit, his eyes wide as he tried to understand what made humans so different. The humans did not rush blindly into battle. They advanced in measured formations, keeping civilian transports safe in the center of the fleet. Warships surrounded them like guardians, scanning constantly for threats. Karel had studied countless species in his life, but he had never seen a species fight like this. The humans were not reckless, they were disciplined. Every action was deliberate, every decision carefully considered. On the command bridge of one of the larger human warships, Captain Alina stared at the tactical screens. She was not young, but she was focused. Every ship in her fleet had a role, and every crew member knew it. Communication was precise, with no unnecessary chatter. Orders were given calmly, executed immediately, and adjusted when circumstances changed. Karel noticed something that made him uneasy. Humans were adaptable in a way that no other species he had observed could match. The enemy launched their first strike in the early hours. Several sleek black warships darted forward, weapons glowing with deadly energy. They expected humans to scatter, but humans held their lines. Small defensive ships darted between the larger vessels, intercepting missiles and energy blasts. When one warship was hit, another moved to cover it instantly. There was no panic, no hesitation. Karel realized the truth. Humans did not need perfection. They thrived in imperfection. They turned every setback into an opportunity. A young soldier named Jerk guided a small transport through a dangerous corridor of space. Enemy fire was everywhere, and several ships around him were damaged. Jerk's hands shook slightly, but he kept moving. He radioed for help, and immediately another human pilot adjusted his course to provide cover. There was no hesitation. Humans worked together as if they were extensions of each other, not separate beings. Karel felt a chill in his chest. If the enemy believed humans could be broken, they were wrong. Meanwhile, Captain Alina's warship executed a clever maneuver. Instead of confronting the enemy head-on, she split her forces, forcing the attackers to divide their firepower. Smaller human ships slipped past enemy lines, targeting weak points in the enemy formation. Karel's antennas twitched nervously. He had studied tactics for decades, yet humans constantly surprised him. Their strategy was not based on sheer power, but on ingenuity, timing, and trust in one another. The battle continued for hours. Enemy commanders grew frustrated. Their weapons were powerful, their ships fast, but humans refused to give them the advantage. Each human ship that was hit seemed to inspire others rather than demoralize them. Karel noticed soldiers repairing damaged ships even under fire, civilians stepping up to assist with logistics, and pilots improvising when technology failed. Humans were relentless, but not out of anger. They were relentless out of necessity. Survival mattered more than anything else. Jerk's transport was hit by a plasma blast, shattering one of its engines. For a moment, he feared it was over. But another human ship moved to tow him out of danger, and a repair crew immediately worked on the damaged engine. Jerk gritted his teeth and continued toward the mission objective. Every human around him did the same. They did not stop because it was dangerous. They moved forward because it had to be done. Karel felt a sense of dread. If these humans were like this under threat, what would they be like when the stakes were even higher? Captain Alina's fleet began to encircle a group of enemy ships. Instead of attacking recklessly, she used human ingenuity. Sensors were overloaded with false signals, and the enemy ships could not distinguish friend from foe. A small human squadron slipped behind the enemy lines, disabling critical weapons and communications. Karel could barely keep up with the speed of their thinking. Humans were not simply fighting. They were orchestrating the battle like a symphony, each movement precise, adaptive, and purposeful. By the end of the day, the enemy realized that the humans were not what they expected. Their initial arrogance had turned into fear. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not flee when things went badly, and they did not attack blindly when things went well. They adapted, they endured, and they coordinated in ways that made the enemy question their own strategies. Karel felt a strange admiration, mixed with fear. The humans' calm determination was terrifying in its efficiency. That night, humans did not celebrate. There was no cheering or boasting. Instead, they repaired ships, cared for the wounded, and analyzed data for the next day. Captain Alina walked through the fleet, checking on crews and speaking quietly to officers. Karel observed silently. He noticed the humans focus on each other rather than themselves. The soldiers who had survived the battle were exhausted, but they immediately helped those who had been injured. Humans understood that strength came not from individual power but from collective endurance. Karel also noticed something deeper. Humans remembered. They remembered past failures, past battles, and past hardships. It was as if every mistake they had ever made was stored somewhere in their minds and used to guide them. This memory made them unpredictable in battle. Enemies assumed humans would repeat the same mistakes, but humans never did. Every action was informed by experience, observation, and adaptation. The enemy could not anticipate them because humans did not act like any species the galaxy had known. In the morning, the battle resumed. The humans were ready. Their fleet moved with purpose, anticipating enemy attacks before they arrived. Jerk piloted his repaired transport through dangerous space, delivering supplies to forward positions. Captain Alina coordinated attacks, defended vulnerable points, and adapted to enemy movements in real time. Every human in the fleet was part of a single, cohesive force. Karel realized that humans had not just learned to fight. They had learned to survive together, and this made them terrifyingly effective. The enemy launched a massive strike at midday. Energy beams tore through space, and explosions lit up the darkness. Karel expected chaos, but humans responded calmly. Some ships absorbed damage while others diverted attacks. Repair crews worked as explosions raged around them. Pilots improvised, civilians helped guide critical cargo, and soldiers protected them all. Humans had a remarkable ability to focus under pressure, to maintain calm even when destruction surrounded them. Karel felt a cold shiver run through his spine. As the battle reached its peak, the humans began to counterattack. They did not charge recklessly. Instead, they exploited the enemy's weaknesses, creating traps and using terrain to their advantage. Human ingenuity shone through. Small, agile ships struck at critical points, while larger warships provided covering fire. Logistics were perfectly coordinated, ensuring that no human unit ran out of supplies. Karel's mind struggled to keep up. Humans were not simply fighting, they were rewriting the rules of engagement. By evening, the enemy fleet had been repelled. They had underestimated humanity, and their arrogance had cost them dearly. Karel observed the aftermath with fascination and fear. Humans had lost ships and suffered casualties, yet they were not demoralized. They repaired, regrouped, and prepared for whatever came next. Every human knew that war was not about winning a single battle. It was about enduring until victory was secure. Karel could no longer hide his admiration. Humans were extraordinary. They were not the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced. But they were persistent, clever, and unbreakable. Every human in the fleet had a purpose, every loss had a lesson, and every action was part of a larger plan. The galaxy had assumed humans were weak, but they were discovering the truth. Humans were frighteningly resilient. As night fell on the battlefield, humans continued their work. They tended to the wounded, repaired damaged ships, and shared meals quietly with one another. There was no celebration, no boasting, only preparation for the next challenge. Karel realized that humans were not motivated by pride or anger. They were motivated by duty, survival, and care for each other. This made them unpredictable, adaptable, and terrifying in ways the galaxy had never understood. Karel thought about the reports he would send to the Galactic Council. He knew that words could not fully convey what he had seen. Humans were not just fighters. They were survivors, planners, and collaborators. They were capable of enduring unimaginable pressure and continuing forward when other species would have crumbled. The galaxy feared them because they did not fight like anyone else. They fought to endure, and that endurance made them unstoppable. As the stars twinkled above the human fleet, Karel realized that the story of humans was only beginning. The galaxy had seen a small glimpse of their power, but it had not yet seen the full force of their resolve. Humans would continue to march, to adapt, and to survive. And when they did, the galaxy would finally understand why humans were feared, not because they sought war, but because they refused to be broken. The following morning, the human fleet was ready again. Karel watched silently from orbit as the humans prepared for another day of conflict. Unlike other species he had observed, they did not appear tense or fearful. Their faces showed focus, determination, and a quiet understanding of what was to come. Every human moved with purpose, repairing ships, checking weapons, or helping one another carry supplies. The enemy had regrouped overnight, bringing larger, faster ships to the battlefield. They were confident that this time, humanity would crumble under overwhelming force. Karel's sensors recorded their battle plans, and he felt a shiver run through his body. He had expected humans to retreat or surrender, as most species would have done in the face of such odds. But the humans did something that left him stunned. They advanced. The fleet moved forward slowly, deliberately, keeping civilian transports safely in the center. Warships flanked them, creating a protective wall. Sensors detected enemy strikes, but humans anticipated them. Missiles were intercepted, energy blasts were dodged, and damaged ships were immediately repaired. Karel watched a young pilot named Lyra maneuver her fighter through a storm of fire. One of her engines failed, yet she did not panic. She radioed for assistance, and two other fighters adjusted their paths to provide cover while she continued her mission. Captain Alina observed from her flagship. Her calm voice issued precise orders to the fleet. Each command was executed immediately, but with room for adaptation. When an enemy ship changed course unexpectedly, a human warship intercepted it without hesitation. When a supply ship was disabled, it was towed and repaired while under enemy fire. Every human in the fleet acted independently when necessary, yet their actions remained coordinated as part of a single, larger plan. The enemy unleashed a wave of firepower that would have destroyed any other fleet. Karel expected chaos, but the humans adapted. They had contingency plans for every scenario. When a warship's shields failed, nearby ships formed a defensive circle around it. When a transport ship lost navigation, humans nearby guided it safely to the fleet's center. Karel felt a cold realization. These humans were not merely surviving, they were thriving in conditions that should have destroyed them. He turned his attention to the young soldiers on the front lines. Jerk, who had been repairing ships and guiding transports, now led a squad of infantry through a damaged asteroid field. Enemy drones attacked relentlessly, but Jerk's squad used the terrain cleverly, hiding behind rocks and debris while striking at their attackers. They communicated silently, with hand signals and subtle gestures, moving like a single organism. Karel had never seen such coordination in a species so physically limited compared to others. The humans' strength was not in raw power. It was in their minds, their adaptability, and their will to endure. Karel observed a human engineer named Myra. She crawled along a damaged hull, patching critical systems while the ship shook from enemy fire. Sparks flew around her, but she continued without fear. Nearby soldiers provided cover, firing at incoming drones, but they did not speak loudly. Everything was calm, precise, and efficient. Myra's determination inspired others, and soon more humans joined her, working as a single unit to save the ship. The enemy grew frustrated. They had underestimated humanity, assuming fear and chaos would take hold. Yet the humans continued to advance, counterattacking when the opportunity arose. Captain Alina's fleet executed a series of maneuvers that outsmarted the enemy. Smaller, agile ships infiltrated weak points in the enemy formation, disabling weapons and communications. Larger warships provided supporting fire, ensuring that each strike was precise and effective. Karel's antennas twitched as he recorded every detail. Humans did not rely on overwhelming strength or advanced technology. They relied on teamwork, intelligence, and adaptability. Even when damaged or outnumbered, humans found ways to turn the situation to their advantage. They improvised, they protected each other, and they never gave up. Karel realized that humans were most dangerous when everything seemed lost. Their ability to endure and adapt made them unpredictable, and unpredictability in war was a weapon more powerful than any gun. Jerk's squad faced a sudden ambush. Enemy drones descended from the shadows of the asteroid field, firing in all directions. The squad was surrounded and several soldiers were injured. For a moment it seemed hopeless, but Jerk did not panic. He barked precise instructions, guiding his squad into a tight formation. They used the asteroids as cover, firing at the drones strategically. When a drone exploded near a soldier, others quickly moved to shield him. Karel observed, astonished, as humans turned what should have been a disaster into a tactical advantage. Elsewhere, Captain Alina made a risky decision. She split a portion of her fleet to flank the enemy. Sensors detected heavy fire, but the humans anticipated it. They created decoys, used electronic countermeasures, and moved in perfect synchronization. The flanking maneuver succeeded, disabling critical weapons and forcing the enemy into retreat. The humans had not simply survived. They had fought smart, adapted quickly, and turned the enemy's strength into weakness. The battle continued late into the day. Karel observed humans rescuing the wounded, repairing damaged ships, and coordinating complex maneuvers simultaneously. The enemy unleashed everything they had, yet the humans refused to break. Every failure became a lesson, every setback a new strategy. Karel realized that humans did not fight like any other species in the galaxy. They were not reckless, nor were they blindly brave. They were relentless, adaptive, and unyielding. Jerk's squad finally reached their objective, guiding a critical transport safely to the fleet center. Soldiers and engineers worked together, patching damage and unloading supplies. Lyra returned to base, her fighter battered but functional. Myra completed repairs on the largest warship, ensuring it could continue supporting the fleet. Every human had played a role, and every role mattered. Karel understood something vital. Humans derived their strength not from individual power, but from their collective will to endure. As night fell, humans did not celebrate. There were no parades, no songs, no speeches. They tended to the wounded, repaired their ships, and shared quiet meals. Captain Alina walked through the fleet, checking on her crews and speaking calmly to officers. She did not boast about their victories. She reminded everyone to stay focused, to plan for tomorrow, and to continue working together. Karel noticed that humans drew strength from each other, not from glory or recognition. Their unity was as powerful as their strategy. Karel reflected on what he had witnessed. The galaxy feared humans because of what they might do, but he now realized the deeper truth. Humans were terrifying because they could not be broken. They endured when others would have fled. They adapted when others would have failed. They worked together when others would have turned on each other. Humans were not invincible. They did not need to be. Their resilience, ingenuity, and unity made them unstoppable in ways the galaxy had never anticipated. He watched as the stars glimmered above the fleet, each human ship a testament to determination and endurance. Karel realized that humanity's power was not in weapons or fleets alone, but in their willingness to continue despite pain, fear, and loss. Every human who survived today carried the memory of failure and the lesson of survival, and that memory made them more dangerous than any technology the enemy could bring. The next morning would bring more attacks, more challenges, and more opportunities to test humanity's limits. Karel knew that by the time the galaxy truly understood humans, it might already be too late. They were learning, adapting, and enduring faster than anyone had predicted. And once humans committed to a battle, they would see it through to the end, no matter the cost. As Karel observed the humans quietly preparing for the next engagement, he understood why the galaxy feared them. Humans did not fight for pride, conquest, or revenge. They fought because survival demanded it, because protecting each other required it, and because once they decided to act, they refused to be broken. That refusal, more than anything else, was terrifying. The humans were marching toward war, and the galaxy was beginning to see the truth. They were not merely a species to be underestimated. They were a force defined by endurance, intelligence, and unity. And if the galaxy believed humans could be stopped by fear, surprise, or overwhelming power, it had learned a dangerous lesson the hard way. Karel's report to the Council would be simple, yet chilling. The humans were not only surviving, they were thriving in adversity, learning with every failure, and becoming stronger with every challenge. The galaxy had never faced anything like them. And as the stars glimmered above the human fleet, Karel knew that when humans fought, they did so with a combination of calm intelligence and unyielding will that no enemy could predict or overcome. Humanity's story was only beginning. Karel could feel it. The battles to come would test them further, but one truth was already clear. Humans refused to break. And in their refusal, they had become something the galaxy had never anticipated. A species both ordinary and extraordinary, fragile in appearance yet unstoppable in spirit. The morning sun rose over the human fleet with a quiet determination that seemed almost unnatural to Karel. The alien observer had seen many species scramble and panic at the first sign of danger, but not humans. Humans moved with calm precision, preparing for the next wave of attacks. Ships were repaired overnight, weapons systems checked, and medical teams tended to the wounded. Nothing was left to chance, yet there was no fear, no chaos, only purpose. Captain Alina walked the decks of her flagship, scanning the fleet through her eyes and the sensors that connected all human ships. Every vessel from the largest warship to the smallest transport had a role, and every crew member understood it. Humans did not need constant orders to act. They adapted on their own, filling gaps, covering weaknesses, and supporting one another. Karel had observed many fleets, but he had never seen such a combination of independence and coordination. The enemy, confident from their previous encounters, had brought reinforcements. Massive ships, faster and more heavily armed than the humans, appeared at the edge of sensor range. Their weapons glowed with deadly energy. Karel expected humans to retreat or hesitate. Instead, the human fleet advanced slowly, methodically, forming protective formations around civilian transports and the most damaged vessels. It was not aggression, it was calculated endurance. Jerk, the young soldier who had already faced the brunt of battle, now led a team of infantry through the debris of a shattered asteroid belt. The enemy had planted traps, expecting to ambush humans who advanced without caution. But humans moved carefully, using the environment to their advantage. They climbed, ducked, and crawled with a determination that ignored exhaustion. When one of Jerk's squad was caught in a falling piece of rock, the others immediately formed a shield, saving him from injury. It was instinctive, almost natural. In orbit above, Captain Alina coordinated her fleet. She did not shout or panic. Her voice, calm and deliberate, issued precise instructions. Red Squadron flank the enemy left. Blue Squadron provide cover fire. Civilian transports maintain formation. Just as needed. Every order was executed immediately, but each ship retained flexibility to act if circumstances changed. Karel watched in awe as the humans demonstrated what no other species had mastered: complete coordination without complete control. The enemy struck again, unleashing waves of missiles and energy blasts designed to overwhelm the humans. Karel expected chaos. Other fleets would have crumbled under this firepower, but the humans adapted instantly. Smaller ships intercepted incoming attacks, while repair crews worked on damaged vessels even under fire. Jerk's squad used the asteroid field to ambush enemy drones, turning disadvantage into opportunity. Humans did not panic. They solved every problem as it came, using their minds and each other. Lyra, a young pilot, maneuvered her fighter through a swarm of enemy drones. One of her engines had been damaged in the previous battle, yet she did not hesitate. She radioed for assistance, and nearby fighters adjusted their flight paths to cover her while she continued her mission. Karel realized something terrifying. Humans did not need perfection to be deadly. They improvised, adapted, and survived. Each human carried the collective intelligence and memory of past failures, using it to guide action in the present. Captain Alina's fleet began a maneuver that K-Rel had never seen before. She split part of the fleet into small, agile units and sent them around the enemy flank. Sensors detected the enemy struggling to respond. Communications were jammed by humans using simple but effective decoys. The enemy could not track the humans' true positions. One by one, the flanking units disabled enemy weapons, blocked escape routes, and created chaos within the enemy ranks. The humans did not celebrate. They continued calmly, adjusting tactics as needed. On the ground, Jerk's squad faced a sudden onslaught. Enemy drones had found a weak spot, and fire rained down from all sides. Several soldiers were injured, some incapacitated. Jerk did not falter. He barked orders, repositioning his squad to use the rocks as cover and striking strategically. They moved as a single unit, protecting each other, improvising and adapting to the enemy's moves. K-Rel realized humans thrived in adversity. Where other species would panic, humans found solutions. Where others would retreat, humans pressed on. Myra, the engineer, worked tirelessly to repair a warship that had taken critical damage. Sparks flew around her as energy systems flickered, but she continued calmly. Nearby soldiers provided cover fire, yet Myra's focus never wavered. K-Rel observed as other humans joined her, forming teams to repair multiple systems simultaneously. Every human acted with purpose, but none acted for glory. They acted because it was necessary, because survival depended on it, and because they would not allow failure. By midday, the tide of battle began to shift. The enemy had assumed that sheer firepower and intimidation would break the humans, but the opposite occurred. Humans adapted, counterattacked, and forced the enemy into vulnerable positions. Captain Alina's strategies were simple yet brilliant: exploit weaknesses, protect the fleet, and endure. Every human understood their role, and together they formed an unstoppable chain of action. K-Rel's mind struggled to comprehend how a species so physically limited could be so effective. Even when human ships were damaged, they continued fighting. Civilians helped protect military vessels. Soldiers assisted engineers. Pilots covered each other, sharing fuel, ammunition, and tactics. K-Rel realized that humans were not merely surviving, they were building resilience in real time. Every problem solved made them stronger, and every setback provided new insight. Humans did not fear loss, they used it to improve. As evening approached, the enemy launched a desperate assault. Massive energy beams tore through the battlefield, but humans responded calmly. Jerk's squad moved with precision, avoiding deadly fire while eliminating the threat of drones. Lyra's fighter intercepted critical strikes. Myra's repairs ensured that even the most damaged warships remained operational. Captain Alina adjusted fleet formations instantly, countering enemy movements with intelligence rather than brute force. K-Rel shivered. Humans were not reckless. They were dangerous because they learned, adapted, and endured. By the time night fell, the human fleet had repelled the enemy once again. The aliens were forced to retreat, demoralized and confused. They had expected chaos, but they had encountered calm, intelligence, and relentless determination. K-Rel watched as humans repaired ships, tended to the wounded, and quietly prepared for the next day. There was no celebration, no boasting, no arrogance. Humans drew strength from one another, not from victories. Their unity was more powerful than any weapon. K-Rel began to understand why the galaxy feared humanity. Humans did not fight for glory, conquest, or revenge. They fought because survival demanded it. They protected each other, adapted constantly, and refused to be broken. K-Rel realized that no fleet, no technology, and no enemy could predict exactly how humans would respond. They were unpredictable, resourceful, and unyielding. He observed the young soldiers again. Jerk's squad rested briefly, but they did not linger. They checked equipment, prepared supplies, and shared information about enemy movements. Lyra's fighters were refueled and rearmed. Myra worked late into the night, repairing a damaged warship. Humans did not tire in the way K-Rel expected. They replenished their strength through focus, cooperation, and a shared sense of purpose. Captain Alina walked the decks of her flagship one last time before night fully fell. She spoke softly to officers, reminding them to stay vigilant and continue preparing. There were no speeches, no attempts to inspire with emotion. The humans drew strength from discipline, memory, and the understanding that survival required constant effort. K-Rel noted the quiet determination in their eyes. These humans had learned to endure hardship, to act without panic, and to maintain unity under pressure. As Karel observed the stars above the battlefield, he understood the deeper truth. The galaxy feared humans not because of their technology or their numbers. Humans were terrifying because they could not be broken. They endured what other species could not. They adapted faster than anyone could anticipate. And they acted together not for individual glory, but for the survival of all. This combination of intelligence, resilience, and unity made humans a force unlike any other. The humans were marching toward war again, ready to face challenges even greater than those of the past days. Karel knew that the enemy could continue to strike, could bring more ships, more firepower, and more attempts to overwhelm the humans. Yet he understood that none of it would succeed. Humans would adapt, endure, and fight again. They were not the fastest, the strongest, or the most advanced species, but their determination, their cooperation, and their refusal to break made them unstoppable. Karel realized that the galaxy had misunderstood humanity. Other species fought for power, pride, or conquest. Humans fought because they had no choice. They had to survive, protect each other, and endure. That drive, combined with intelligence and adaptability, made humans unpredictable and dangerous in ways the galaxy could not calculate. As the night deepened, Karel prepared to report to the Galactic Council. He knew that words alone could not convey the truth. Humans were extraordinary in a way the galaxy could not yet understand. They were fragile in appearance, yet unstoppable in spirit. Their endurance, intelligence, and unity made them more formidable than any weapon, fleet, or technology. And as he observed the human fleet quietly maintaining readiness, Karel knew that the true measure of humanity had only begun. The coming days would test them further, but one thing was already certain. Humans refused to break. That refusal, above all else, was what made them terrifying. The galaxy had underestimated them once, and it would pay the price again if it tried to do so. The humans would continue to march, adapt, and endure not for conquest, not for pride, but because they could not allow themselves to fail. And in their unyielding spirit, the galaxy would see the beginning of a force unlike any it had ever faced. The battlefield was quiet now. The enemy had been pushed back, retreating in confusion and fear. Captain Alina's fleet hovered in formation, battered but unbroken. Ships that had been damaged were being repaired, medical teams treated the wounded, and soldiers quietly assessed their next steps. Humans did not celebrate, yet their presence alone radiated a sense of victory that the galaxy could not ignore. Karel observed from orbit, his eyes scanning the fleet. He had seen humans endure hardship, adapt under fire, and fight with relentless determination. But now, after days of unyielding resistance and strategic brilliance, he understood something even deeper. Humans were not just survivors, they were decisive. They did not simply respond to threats. They acted to ensure that threats could never rise again. Captain Alina stood on the bridge of her flagship, her eyes scanning the empty space where the enemy had been moments before. She gave quiet orders not for glory but for preparation. Supply routes were restored, defensive positions reinforced, and damaged systems repaired. Even as the immediate danger faded, humans continued to plan for the future. Karel noted that no other species he had studied moved this way. Most rested, some celebrated, others fled. Humans did neither. They prepared silently, relentlessly for whatever might come next. Jerk and his squad had returned from the front lines. They moved quietly among their comrades, assisting where they could. One of their injured teammates had been stabilized and was now resting. They spoke softly, sharing observations about enemy tactics, discussing what had worked and what could be improved. Every soldier acted as both a fighter and a teacher. Every experience was a lesson. Karel felt a chill run through him. The humans did not just survive, they learned and grew stronger in the process. Lyra's fighter squad returned as well. Each pilot had pushed their ships to the limit, maneuvering through deadly swarms and energy blasts. Their faces were tired but determined. They refueled, rearmed, and immediately began planning for the next engagement. Karel observed that humans did not view battle as a momentary challenge, but as part of an ongoing responsibility. They did not seek glory. They did not crave vengeance. They acted because it was necessary, and necessity made them unstoppable. Myra, the engineer, moved among the fleet, repairing critical systems that had been damaged during the final assault. She worked quickly, yet with care, coordinating with other engineers and soldiers. Sparks flew, systems hummed back to life, and ships that had been crippled now moved once again. Karel realized that humans' strength lay not in their technology, which was modest compared to the enemy, but in their will and ingenuity. They could adapt, repair, and improve in real time. Captain Alina finally spoke to her fleet. Her voice was calm, yet commanding. "We have won this battle, but the threat is not over. Remain vigilant, protect each other, learn from today. Tomorrow we rebuild." And we continue to endure. There was no cheering, no fanfare. Humans did not need celebration. Their focus on duty, survival, and collective effort was enough. Karel felt a deep respect and a cold realization. Humans were terrifying not because they sought war, but because they refused to be broken. The enemy fleet, now in retreat, attempted a counterattack far from the human formation. They sent one last strike, hoping to regain control. Missiles streaked across space and energy beams lit the darkness. Humans responded instantly. Smaller ships intercepted the attacks, warships blocked critical paths, and engineers coordinated repairs in real time. Every human acted with precision, ensuring that no part of the fleet was vulnerable. Karel noted that the humans' ability to absorb damage and maintain coordination was unlike anything he had seen. Jerk's squad faced another ambush near a damaged asteroid field. Enemy drones swarmed, firing in all directions. Some soldiers were injured, some temporarily incapacitated. Jerk, however, did not hesitate. He organized a defensive perimeter, directed fire strategically, and guided the injured to safety. Other humans joined spontaneously, forming teams that acted independently but in perfect harmony with the larger strategy. Karel realized that humans' coordination extended beyond orders. They acted collectively out of instinct, loyalty, and shared purpose. Captain Alina coordinated a final maneuver that would secure their victory. She divided a portion of her fleet into agile units to flank the remaining enemy ships. Using decoys and electronic countermeasures, she disrupted enemy communication. The enemy was caught off guard, their formations crumbling under precise, coordinated strikes. Humans did not chase for revenge. They disabled enemy weapons, blocked retreat paths, and ensured that the threat could not return quickly. Karel felt a growing sense of fear, mingled with awe. The humans' intelligence, discipline, and endurance had turned the tide decisively. As the enemy fleet finally retreated beyond sensor range, the human forces regrouped. No one celebrated. Soldiers checked their equipment, engineers repaired their ships, and pilots recalibrated sensors and weapons. Even the civilians aboard transport ships assisted where possible. Karel realized that humans drew strength not from individual power but from collective responsibility. Every human mattered, and every action contributed to the survival and success of the whole. Night fell over the battlefield. Captain Alina walked through the corridors of her flagship, speaking quietly to officers and soldiers alike. She reminded them to rest, but also to remain vigilant. Humans did not become complacent. They learned from every encounter, recording observations, analyzing tactics, and sharing knowledge. Karel noted that this continuous learning was part of what made humans unstoppable. Other species celebrated victories and ignored lessons. Humans absorbed them, adapting constantly. Jerk and his squad huddled together briefly, sharing rations and quiet conversation. They were tired, yet their focus remained sharp. They discussed what they had learned, what worked, and what could be improved. Karel observed that humans did not see failure as shameful. They saw it as a teacher. Every mistake, every near loss was absorbed into memory and used to prepare for the next challenge. It was a cycle of growth born from endurance. Lyra's fighter squad completed maintenance on their ships and shared insights from the air battle. They discussed enemy strategies, timing, and weaknesses. Karel noticed the absence of arrogance. Humans did not boast about victories or kills. They shared information calmly, always with the goal of improving collective performance. This humility, combined with relentless perseverance, made humans terrifyingly effective. Myra finished repairs on the flagship's engines, ensuring full operational capacity. She coordinated with other engineers to maintain the readiness of every ship in the fleet. Karel observed that humans' ability to act under extreme pressure, to remain calm while repairing critical systems, was unmatched in the galaxy. Where other species would falter, humans thrived. Where others panicked, humans adapted. Their resilience was endless. Captain Alina addressed the fleet one final time before settling in for a brief rest. "We have defended our people, our home, and our allies. Tomorrow we rebuild, we remain vigilant, and we endure. That is what makes us human." There was no cheering, no clapping. Humans did not seek recognition. They acted because it was necessary, because survival depended on it, and because they refused to be broken. Karel felt a deep, chilling understanding. This refusal was the source of their true power. The enemy had learned a harsh lesson. They had underestimated humanity, believing them weak, divided, and fearful. But the humans had proven something undeniable. They could endure any assault, adapt faster than the enemy could anticipate, and act collectively with precision and intelligence. The galaxy had feared humans for many reasons, but now Karel understood the deepest truth. Humans were feared because they refused to stop, refused to surrender, and refused to be broken. As the stars twinkled over the quiet battlefield, Karel prepared his report for the Galactic Council. He would have to describe not only human strength and strategy, but the essence of what made them extraordinary: their endurance, intelligence, adaptability, and unity. They were not invincible, yet their ability to survive, adapt, and continue forward made them unstoppable in ways the galaxy could not fully calculate. Jerk, Lyra, Myra, Captain Alina, and countless others moved quietly among the fleet, preparing for tomorrow, for the next battle, for the challenges that would inevitably come. Humans did not rest in triumph. They rested to prepare, to learn, and to endure. Every action, every decision, every coordinated effort reinforced the truth that the galaxy had long feared but misunderstood. Karel realized that the humans' story was far from over. They would face more enemies, larger fleets, and harsher conditions. But he also knew that nothing the galaxy could throw at them would break their spirit. They would continue to fight, adapt, and endure, not for glory, not for conquest, not for pride, but because they could not allow themselves to fail. The humans had become more than survivors. They were a force defined by determination, intelligence, and unity. Every soldier, pilot, engineer, and civilian contributed to this force, creating a system that could not be overwhelmed by brute strength alone. Karel felt awe and fear simultaneously. He had witnessed something extraordinary, a species that could endure, adapt, and win through unity and willpower. And as the human fleet moved quietly through space, repairing, regrouping, and preparing for whatever would come next, Karel understood the final truth. The galaxy would never challenge humanity without understanding the cost. Humans fought not for destruction, not for dominance, but because they would endure at any cost. And that endurance, more than any weapon or fleet, made them the most feared species in the galaxy.